The major events and concepts presented in this course contributed greatly to the advancement of globalization and flattening, shrinking the world from medium to small over the course of 200 years. According to Friedman, the definition of globalization is the interweaving of markets, technology, information systems, and telecommunication systems in a way that is shrinking the world from a size medium to a size small, and enabling us to reach around the world farther, faster, deeper, and cheaper than ever before. Flattening is making the world a level playing field by taking down divisions and barriers. Globalization has developed consistently over the last 200 years, while flattening has been inconsistent. Flattening occurred from the Industrial Revolution to World War II and spiked again at the end of the Cold War. The Industrial Revolution contributed to both flattening and globalization. During the Industrial Revolution, modern Western society created tools and machines for farming, communication, transportation, manufacturing, etc. These inventions contributed to the advancement of globalization because now that there was a greater means of communication and transportation, manufacturing, and many other things. These inventions contributed to the advancement of globalization because now that there was a greater means of communication and transportation, people could connect and work with others in different locations in an easier way, thus making the world shrink from large to medium. For industrialized countries such as the United States, England, and France, the world was becoming flatter because now that many different people have the ability to obtain these new inventions, everyone begins to play on a level playing field and could manufacture, travel, and connect. The Industrial Revolution led to imperialism because now that these inventions were successful, lucrative, and available to the people who could afford them, industrialized nations felt the need to continue their growth. With this mentality, European nations began to expand their control, power, and land to be able to obtain resources, cheaper labor, and a bigger market for their products by taking over different lands in Africa, Asia, South America, and the Middle East. Imperialism was an example of further globalization because these industrialized countries began to forcefully spread their values, beliefs, languages, and ideals amongst weaker countries whom they took over. Now people were speaking English, Dutch, and French all over the world. Some people might think that this was a time of flattening because technology was spreading across the world, but in reality it was not. It was because of stronger, bigger nations were taking over weaker nations. The colonized people were taken advantage of, their land used without their permission, and they were not given an equal chance to succeed in this. The globalization and lack of flattening and imperialism contributed to World War I because everyone was competing for the same land. As a result, tension and paranoia grew amongst nations. This war was globalizing because it was a world war. Many different countries came together to fight and formed alliances that would have never otherwise been created. The result of this war, the Treaty of Versailles, did not have a flattening effect, however. The treaty took away most of Germany's military power and weapons, reduced the size of Germany's land, and made Germany completely responsible, both economically and morally, for the war. This is not seen as an example of flattening because now that Germany was so stripped and broken down, it did not have the same status or wealth that other countries had at the time, causing there to be yet again an uneven playing field. World War II, like World War I, also was an example of globalization because now that the whole world was getting into a war, everyone began to create different ties and allies in order to fight the enemy. World War II was based off of the attempt of power-crazed dictators trying to take over other countries by forcefully invading and attacking weaker nations. The alliances amongst nations were globalizing. The Allied forces consisted of the United States, Britain, France, Canada, Russia, Poland, Mexico, and everyone else who was against Adolf Hitler and his Nazi regime. The Axis powers consisted of Germany, Italy, and Japan. The war contributed to a spike in flattening in 1945 when the Axis powers were defeated. New countries were created and people gained freedom. During the Cold War, globalization continued to increase, while flattening decreased. The Cold War period was globalizing because in addition to the establishment of the United Nations, countries also came together to create NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which sends troops into international conflicts. There have also been international foundations that were created to provide relief for other countries during national disasters and other problems in the world. This is not a period of flattening because people that occupied communist countries, specifically the USSR, East Germany, China, and North Korea, began to lose their rights and privileges, which created inequality for many different people around the world. Since the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was the division between communist and democratic Germanies, flattening drastically increased because as communism fell in Europe, more people were given rights and opportunities to equalize the playing field with the rest of the world. Corporations such as Google, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and Apple have expanded all over the world. Furthermore, modern technology such as internet, personal computers, cameras, cell phones, satellite TV, cable, and more have all contributed to globalization and flattening because now that billions of people around the world have the same means of communication and information, the world has shifted from small to tiny.